everything that led me to those DWIs and where I was at in my life was all my choice. I'm doing this in 2 months, and 50 miles a day is roughly 3,000 miles. So it's just like, all right, you make it to 50 every day. That's it. That's your goal. That's what you focus on.
You've had a couple near misses, right?
I've had trucks ripping by me for months. Like, there was one guy who veered off the side of the road, and I had to jump off my board. And then
Before he got the Guinness Book of World Records for skateboarding across America, that's 3,000 plus miles, before his viral YouTube channel and his book and his documentary, Chad Caruso was sitting behind the wheel of somebody else's broken down car at 4 a.m. on his birthday, and he had just failed a breathalyzer, which meant he was going to get his second DWI. And it also meant that he was facing a felony and possible jail time. And that was the rock bottom moment that changed everything for Chad. He got sober. He paid off the $10,000 in debt that he had to borrow for his legal fees. He leased an iPhone and he started filming skateboarding tutorials for his new YouTube channel. His motivation was to give back because he had taken so much from everything and everyone, and his sobriety journey inspired him to become more purposeful in the way that he lived. And this is what led to his biggest goal to date, the skateboard across America from coast to coast alone. No sponsors, no support vehicle, just him, his backpack, and 3,000 plus miles of open road. And in order to finish in 57 days, Chad had to ride his skateboard an average of 55 miles a day. So Walmart parking lots were his morning routine. Motels and hotels became his laundromat and a chance to ice his feet. And the silence on the road nearly broke him. In this episode, Chad shares the backstory of how his felony led him to his purpose and what it really takes mentally, physically, and most importantly, spiritually to accomplish a massive feat like skateboarding across America. We'll start with the DWI that changed everything, and I'll put timestamps below if you want to skip around.
So I got a chance to look at your documentary about skating across America, which is super inspiring, but was more inspiring than I was anticipating, actually. I love the timing. It's like 40 minutes, 45 minutes or something like that, which is like a really sweet amount of time. And I've also looked at a lot of your videos on your YouTube channel. And so there's a lot that you put in there, but there's a lot that you didn't put in there because obviously, there just wasn't enough time to do all of that. So hopefully in this conversation, we'll fill in some of those gaps. And also I just want to get an idea of what led to that challenge for yourself. And I guess we'll start off talking about childhood. Okay. So you grew up in very interesting circumstances. Your parents were, would you could describe them as hippies or just like spiritual seekers, or talk a little bit about the early days of what your parents were into with the ashram and the spiritual guru and all of that.
yeah, definitely a little hippie, but not too much. Dad listened to Hendrix, but like nothing, like they weren't all in on it. They were more about learning about Buddhism and, just Eastern philosophy in general. And they met this woman. She came over from India and opened up an ashram. So they helped her write a book. My dad helped build the place. So I've just been around that, environment my whole life.
Do you remember any philosophies or ideologies that your parents would echo to you and your brothers as you all were growing up, such as spiritual concepts, everything's connected, everything happens for a reason, and these kinds of things that keep you present?
Honestly, I feel like I got more of an effect from just being around them and how they are, as opposed to like exact things being told.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember my dad saying things here and there, like, I'm doing this. I have a big show tonight. And you're like, who are you? Like, who's Chad Caruso? And that would that broke my mind just thinking about it. Like, wait, what does he mean? The more you think about it, you like dissolve your ego and you're like, wait, what does that even mean? But even though I didn't get to figure it out, it just thinking that way at that time,
Hmm.
it trains your mind to behave in it or think in a different way.
Did you do that at school at all, or with your friend group, where you kind of adopted some of these ways of being?
I mean, I don't know. I was just always floating around doing whatever. Like I didn't have I'd pop into different groups. Um, I was always cutting school. I couldn't sit still, always getting in trouble, trying to make people laugh. Um, so I don't know. Maybe it helped me see through like the whole game, or like you have to go to school, you have to get this job. And it kind of made me not want to be a part of it. Or maybe it was just that whole philosophy in general, just kind of like stepping outside of the norm. But yeah, so something was kind of pushing me away from just um, following a path that I wasn't choosing to be on.
And your parents separated very early, but you have a brother who's, I think, what, 8 years older than you or something like that.
Yeah,
Did
I
he,
have two older
did,
brothers. One's 4 years older, and one's 8 years older.
did they play sort of parental roles with you, or did they not really have much to do with you, or what was that relationship like with your brothers?
Yeah, they were always kind of doing their own thing, and I'd try to like tag along, and if I got to go out with them, like I go play hockey with my brother and his friends, and they would just like cross check me into the fence, or I was always kind of getting like bullied, but I think that helped me like level up. You know what I mean? I'm trying to compete with guys 4 and 8 years older than me as a kid. Even
Hmm.
just playing basketball in front or something, it's making me push myself.
Okay, so you were involved in sports, but then you get introduced to skateboarding as a early teenager. Well, talk a little bit about that experience. What was it that drew you to skateboarding and away from everything else?
Yeah, so I loved basketball. I loved baseball. I went to camps for both of them. My dad would take me to like batting cages. So I was always all in on whatever I was doing and trying to be the best at it. But once I found skating, I don't know, it just was way more exciting. And the fact I could do it on my own whenever I wanted, no rules, no teams, no arena, that just drew me in.
Who was your skateboarding friend, your earliest skateboarding friend, who you would, I guess, practice with the most?
Um, there was this kid, Nick Sassa. I grew up with him. He's from Lindenhurst too, and we were like the two kid skaters. You know what I mean? Like everyone lumped us together. It was Chad Caruso, Nick Sassa. So we definitely had that competitive nature too as kids. He would do something, I would do something, and just keep building on it.
Do you remember the first major trick that you mastered,
Um,
or one of the
I
first?
yeah, I think it was a varial flip. So it's like basically the first time I learned how to flip my board, which if you've ever skated, it's just like thousands of tries,
Hmm.
hours and hours of failure. I would try in my basement just like every day, and then you finally land one and you're just like, I don't know, you get this crazy elated feeling that lasts like 3 seconds and then it's just gone.
Hmm.
So you like put in like, days and days and days of work, and then it's just like, all right, what's next?
Back when I was that age, early teenager, I used to draw a lot and I used to make model like skyscrapers and stuff from scratch. I would just go to the encyclopedia, find like the Sears Tower in Chicago or some tall building, look at all the angles and just kind of eyeball a sort of blueprint of it and then cut it out on paper poster board and then create it. And I'm sure that if you ask my brothers, because I've got three brothers, what I was up to or what I was obsessed with, they probably would say something along those lines. He was obsessed with creating things, modeling things. If I asked your brothers back then what your biggest obsessions were, what would they have said?
Um, yeah, probably skateboarding, basketball, um, getting in trouble. Uh,
What kind of things would you get in trouble with though as a teenager? Just talking
uh,
back in class or being,
I mean,
making jokes in the back of the room?
I got an infinite list for you. We could do a whole podcast on that. Um, for example, in like seventh grade science class, there was a substitute teacher, and we had this thing called the doer. You mix chemicals in it. It's like probably a foot or two big, little glass kind of black thing. Um, and when the teacher was writing at the board, not looking, I chucked that out of the second story window. And you just hear it smash on the ground on the first floor. All the teachers come upstairs and they're trying to figure out who did it.
That's like expulsion worthy,
Yeah.
misbehavior. Somebody could have
all
gotten
the time.
hurt.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, smoke bomb in school in the hallway.
Was the objective to get laughs, or was it to impress a girl, or what were you trying to achieve?
Just laughs. Yeah, just laughs for some reason.
But really, it was an act of rebellion. You probably just didn't want to be there, or just didn't understand why you were there, right?
Yeah, looking back, that's most likely why.
Mm-hmm. So you end up dropping out of school a couple of years after you start. Now I'm a little confused. Is that you did a trip with your mom to Montana? That's before you dropped out, or was that after you dropped out?
Yeah, so I dropped out. I think that was maybe ninth grade. So I dropped out 8th or ninth grade. I just begged her. I was like, all right, I'll move with you to Montana if you let me drop out of school and just keep skating. So we went 6 months and I hated it. It was just in the mountains, you know? So I just misbehaved until I got her to move back. And then went back to school for maybe a year, not even. And at that point, I was just so out. Like I wrote off school in my mind. So I was going with like my arms crossed, like, you know, not talking to anyone. And then soon after that, I just, dropped out. So that was maybe, 10th grade, but I got left back once. So
What's the protocol for dropping out? Like, let's say you want to drop out. How does that even work? Do you have to go through some agency or file paperwork or?
yeah, I think to be honest, I'm not really too sure. Maybe your parents have to sign off on it if you're under a certain age. But I think because I got left back and I think I was 16, I could do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe my mom signed off. I really can't even remember.
Did you understand like how money worked and about rent and all these kinds of things when you were thinking of dropping out? Like, how am I going to support myself? Did you ask yourself those questions, or did you just kind of assume that your parents would continue to support you? Or
Yeah, but not at all. No, I don't think I considered that until I don't even know, like 30. I was just floating around doing whatever I wanted. I didn't care, and I was so used to living with nothing. I didn't need things, material things. I can stay at someone's house on the couch or downstairs and help out with chores or, you know, work odd jobs. I'd always figure something out. So I never like felt that fear of like, oh, I have nothing, or like, you know.
was that something you got from your parents, from your mom or dad, who were Buddhists and into all this ashram life? That's this idea of I don't need anything and I can adapt to anything that happens.
I think so, but not like it wasn't a told lesson. You know, I think
Uh-huh.
it was just they didn't care for things. We didn't care for material things, have any flashy items. You know, our walls were basically had nothing on them.
Right.
It's very simple. You know.
Yeah. And your mom said in the documentary something to the effect of Chad is going to do what he wants to do. She said it in a proud way, not in a negative way. But what's a story from those teenage years where maybe you displayed something like that after dropping out?
After dropping out,
Yeah, that kind of gave
yeah,
them an
okay,
indication that you're going to be okay. This is not, you're not going to be end up in some homeless shelter
okay,
somewhere.
I got one. So, I'm in my drinking phase at this point. I don't know if I'm maybe 24, 25, and I get a call from one of my friends asking if I want to move to California with him.
Hmm.
I had no money at all. So I asked two different friends to borrow $150 each. So I got $300, and he showed up at my house at 6 p.m. that night, and I got in the car and we drove across the country. I had no plan, nowhere to stay. I had, that money was gone towards gas halfway through the trip. So I was stealing beef jerky from gas stations and just figuring it out.
It's so interesting, man, because okay, you're a 16-year-old high school dropout. You're misbehaving. You've got a rap sheet, I'm sure, from school of just all these crazy things you've done. You're broke. You have no ambition to plan anything beyond tomorrow. But you are obsessed with skateboarding, and you ultimately become this like inspirational figure in the world of skateboarding. How do you looking back now as an adult, as the adult Chad, how do you explain where that came from? If you had to kind of go back in hindsight and connect the dots from you dropping out to you maybe starting your YouTube channel, right? And with the intent to serve, to give back instead of just taking and taking and taking. What do you attribute that to?
I think I always wanted to do what I wanted to do as a young kid. Even I just watched footage the other day of myself 5 years old
Mm-hmm.
on the board for the first time. My brother put me on his, and I fall off. My mom runs over, tries to grab my hand, and I rip my hand out. Like I just didn't want help. I want to do it on my own, figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
I think going to school's kind of against that, right? You're just like, you're going to do this and put you on this path. So I think it took me a while and I got deterred and I went, into the drinking phase. But I think just that I committed to skateboarding or that I wanted to do what I loved, it led me back to, you know, the YouTube thing and skateboarding and um, being able to share it. Yeah.
And in a way, I guess learning how to skateboard, learning tricks is kind of like a school. It's like a self-administered instruction where you do things 1,000 times, like you said. You fail, you fail, you fail, but when you pull the lens back, you're actually progressing, which is how anyone learns anything, through growth, through repetition, through occasional pain, the
Yeah.
physical pain in your case, because you have that unforgiving asphalt and cement, and then you build upon that, and that's essentially what people are learning in school. But it's you're doing it on your schedule and your time. You're picking challenges that appeal to you for whatever reason, and you don't need anyone's approval. You don't need a team. It's a very individualized type of thing. So it's interesting how I think in hindsight you still were in school. It's just a school of your choosing.
Yeah. And, now I could look back 25, 30 years, whatever it's been of me focusing on this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, that's the most important lesson in life is committing to one thing. So you can go to school or play a sport, but I think if you master one thing for so long, there's the same lessons in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't ever get to learn those lessons that are at the top of something because it's, you commit to something for 30 years is pretty tough. But yeah, from what I've learned, like once you master something to such a high level, you could just apply it to something else like guitar. Oh, I'm going to learn guitar. First year is going to be really hard. It's going to feel like it's impossible. Then I'll break through. Then I'll meet a mentor. Like you get the whole trajectory,
Mm-hmm.
and how you're going to feel. And like there's ups and downs. And then you become a teacher, like, and throughout that, you learn all these lessons. But so really, yeah, it doesn't matter that it was skateboarding. Yeah, I was in school learning and figuring how to be successful in life, really.
Hey, so a lot of you all have been reaching out with your guest suggestions. And look, I appreciate it. I do. And to help make it easier for those guests to say yes to my invitation, I need you to subscribe to this channel. Just hit the subscribe button below, and that's literally the best way to help me get you that guest on my podcast. All right. Thank you so much for helping out, and back to the show. Do you think your parents saw that? They had that understanding? Or do you think they were a bit embarrassed that they had a high school dropout on their hands who was, looks like he, to greater society, looked like he was up to no good? How do you think your parents and your family kind of related to that, to your story
Yeah,
earlier,
I think, I
in the
mean,
early years?
you brought up an interesting point. I didn't even pick up on that she was kind of proud when she
Mhm.
said it. So
Mhm.
I think there's an element of, yeah, she liked that I was going after what I loved, but the mother in her was always worried. Will
Mhm.
you have a job? How are you going to pay your bills? Will you get hurt?
Mhm.
Um, but I think both of them were so open minded, and they probably knew that we can make him do something. He's just going to hate us and hate the thing. So
Mhm.
like, I don't know, just you kind of got to let it ride, right? If someone's so into something, you're going to have so much restriction. But even as a kid, I remember I was allowed to ride my bike across like highways and like further across town than most of the other kids were. Like I felt like I
Mhm.
had a little bit less rules or more freedom.
Mhm.
So maybe a little bit more trust there.
Did you ever have that thing where you wanted to prove to your dad that you would be successful or could be successful? Was there any of that?
No, no, not at all. If anything, I was almost doing the opposite. I was because they were both, into the Buddhist thing, and
Yeah.
I was trying to go almost trying to be not like them as hard as I could.
Mm.
And I don't know if it was when I got sober or years later, but I started to realize like there was no escaping that.
Mhm.
Like I'm like them, you know. Even
Mhm.
in doing that, probably in being rebellious and wanting to go on my own path was being like them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even though I thought I was kind of rebelling.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your DWI and sobriety journey, like how that whole thing unfolded, where you started and where you ended up.
Yeah. So the drinking really started when I got my first knee injury skateboarding.
Mhm.
And, it wasn't too bad in the beginning. It's usually not this like overnight thing, like you're instantly addicted. I'm just hanging out, going to a party here, a party there. And then um, I injured my knee, got knee surgery, healed for 6 months, and then re-tore my knee right after that, like right after I was fully healed. And that kind of knocked all the wind out of my sails. Then there was a little bit of an uptick in drinking at that point. Plus, I'm getting to the age where you're starting to hang out with girls a little more, so I think I just slowly started talking more about skateboarding than actually doing it.
Would you skate and drink, or was that against your rules for yourself?
Um, no, I would, but if it was only like a party with people or something, or a bunch of people around, 2 to 4 beers, you start getting a little looser. Maybe you're a little more confident, but once you go past that, you're usually not skating that great. So
Mhm.
I would have fun, but not. Didn't really get in the way of my skateboarding like that.
Mhm.
But it was always in the background building. Year after year, it was like it's cementing in a habit. You know, and I didn't have an anchor in life. Like I was, you were saying, I didn't have a job. I didn't have like a purpose really. I was trying to skateboard, but I didn't know what I was aiming at. So you combine those two, and that addiction's like, a strong anchor.
And then you got pulled over.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I got pulled over. The car broke down, and got pulled over. Breathalyzer. I tried to give a PBA card to get out of it. He just threw it right back at me, and ended up getting the DWI. And I just laughed it off. I'm too cool for this. Whatever, it doesn't phase me. Kind of did a lot of money, going through that,
Mhm.
and then just another couple of years of just continuing to drink, and then I got another one, and that was kind of the moment where, yeah, it didn't even hit me with a ton of bricks then. I just kept drinking after that in denial, but um, everything that whole situation brought for the second DWI is when I realized something had to change.
Mhm. And you got it as the designated driver of your friend group, right? Like you
Yeah,
were.
yeah, I'm not proud of it, but yeah, I was taking the keys from everyone. 4 a.m. end of the night. It's like, yeah, I'll get you guys home. Don't worry. I didn't even have a car of my own. I'm just like taking the liberty of making it my responsibility, and for some reason they trusted me.
Mm.
But yeah.
So it was someone else's car that broke down, and you happen to be driving it, and then the cop pulls over, gives you the DWI. Now you're looking at a felony. You have to potentially do jail time, right?
Yeah, you get 2 DWIs within 3 years, and you're usually looking at some jail time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I got the felony, and well, leading up to that was kind of the thing that hurt the most, because I was scared of going to jail.
Of course.
Yeah, I was like frightened. I was playing it out in my head, like I do push-ups all day, sit-ups.
Were you imagining like game rape nightmares and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, that I left out. But yeah, I was just focusing on like what I was gonna do to pass the time, and all right, if I'm on good behavior, I'll get out, a year early, hopefully. And that's when I committed for the first time to like, all right, I can't go into this courtroom lying that I'm sober. I need to actually be sober. The first time I lied, I faked it, went to all these like alcohol classes. I drink around them and pretend I was sober.
Mm-hmm.
But going in the court, I was like, nah, this time I'm gonna try.
And so you start going to the you got in touch with your friend who had his dad or somebody like write a character letter to the judge, right? And that swayed the judge's decision.
Yeah, he was I forget his exact position, something in the Department of Health, building inspector, maybe that was it. And so he's higher up, knows all the people like in the community. And luckily he was the father of a friend of mine. And so, and I helped him out with jobs all the time. I had pretty good standing with him. He didn't know of all my drinking escapades, really. So he wrote me a letter, and that definitely, I think, helped me
And
not
this,
get
ironically,
jail time.
this was one of your drinking buddies' dads, right?
Yeah.
If you hadn't been drinking, you wouldn't have known that he
exactly.
had a dad who was
exactly right.
Yeah, awesome. So you got a second lease at life, and now you're taking the sobriety journey seriously. There are a lot of like really good podcasters out there, and I noticed that a lot of them have a history of being in AA, and they're very humble. They're good storytellers. What are some of the things you noticed in the sobriety journey once you took it seriously that positively influenced you in your years after getting sober?
Yeah. So once I actually committed to being sober, and it was my like choice, not court mandated, really.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sense, it kind of still was court mandated, like I was impending doom, but I made the choice. I'm going to change. And that was the key thing. But just understanding that everything that led me to those DWIs and where I was at in my life was all my choice. Every world wasn't happening to me, and I wasn't unlucky. Every single choice and action I've done led me to be there.
So full accountability for everything.
100%. Yeah. So like slowly unwinding that, took a lot of years of compounding interest there. So I had to, start one decision at a time, and it took a long time to see anything change.
Mm-hmm.
It was a slow, painful, first couple of months, years. But yeah, you could see it like going in that direction, but it's tough when you're in it because you don't know that it's going to work. And that's where I think the idea of faith, I don't like to use that word, but it's like a trust. You have to believe I'm going to make these decisions and life will get better, and that's a tough thing. A lot of times you're like, it's not going to work. I hear all this stuff, blah, blah, blah.
Did you connect deeper to your spirituality or maybe to religious practices? 'Cause I know the 11th step is about prayer and meditation. So did you do that as a part of the sobriety journey?
I did, but I actually didn't go to AA at all. I did the whole thing like completely by myself.
Of course.
So yeah. Like, so I went once to help a friend or here and there, and I have nothing against it, but I just didn't use it. But it turns out that's kind of just the trajectory of someone getting sober. You start to make your amends and you start to find that spirituality. So I find like the parallel there anyway. But yeah, I think pretty quickly I started I was just watching spirituality videos or things like that, and picking up my mom's book she had lying around, like the Bhagavad Gita.
Were you that sober guy who was going around talking about sobriety all the time?
Almost never. Yeah, if it comes up, I'll bring it up. But even on my YouTube channel, I don't like shove it down people's throats, because that's not how I was. I don't like people telling me what to do. I just kind of tell what worked for me and what I'm
Right.
doing. I was never. I mean, it's kind of hard when my whole life completely 180 to not bring it up and be like, hey, man, like this worked for me. So if you're showing the struggle, like, but you know, I've learned from myself and from my brother who's recently gotten sober.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell, you're not going to get through. It
Mm.
has to be their choice.
There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do to
Now, I've
inspire.
tried, man. I've tried. I mean, I think the best you can do to help someone is to be around them. Your presence, your interests, your overall way of being will affect them if you're around them more, because you start to be like the people you're around, or you taking things in. And so I think that's more helpful than telling someone to get sober, because then you're just like, you repel.
Yeah, that's the long game. And the irony is you don't want to be around people who are drinking if you're sober, So
Yeah.
how do you navigate that version to being around someone who's like not fully there because they're under the influence of something?
Yeah, it's tough. And with my brother, I mean, I helped him get sober. And for a couple of weeks, I was just showing up. I'd show up at the liquor store. He'd be sitting out front, and I would just sit next to him against the window, just
Hmm.
hang out there.
Mm-hmm. And just talk
But
about life.
yeah, but I think I was able to get through a little bit more than the average person, because he had known what I'd done and been through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If someone's telling you to get sober and they just like, hadn't gone through it really,
Mm-hmm.
it's harder to listen to. He knew I was like, I was down in the dumps.
So your cousin was doing YouTube vlogs. Was he successful with that, or was he just kind of starting out?
Yeah. Well, let's see. When I first got sober, he was still starting. He might have been at like 10,000 subscribers. Now I think he's like close to 1 million. Yeah, he does like travel vlogs and stuff like that. But we grew up skating together. I gave him his first board. He's, I think, 5 years younger than me. So I'd take him around with all my friends. So, we'd be traveling. He'd be with like 30-year-olds, and he's like 7 years old, and we're all going skating. So he's been around my life, and we've been skating together forever. So when I got sober, it was almost like a natural thing. Like, I looked over, I'm like, oh, he's making YouTube videos. Like, it's kind of like what we did as kids. Like, I just go skate and film ourselves. So, yeah, it was basically like I was picking up where I left off with skating.
Obviously, if he's successful at it and you are thinking about doing it, I'm imagining you went and talked to him and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about just starting a YouTube channel. Do you have any advice for me?" And if
No,
so,
nah, yeah. I'm not
like,
an I don't like asking really for advice.
yeah, that's what I figure.
Yeah,
If anybody's not going to ask for advice, it's going to be you. So,
yeah, and you know what? I was thinking about it the other day, why I'm like that. I remember when I was a kid, I had this moment where I felt like someone told me something, and then I found out when I did it myself that it wasn't true. So it just made me like,
do you remember specifically what it was?
I honestly couldn't tell you, but there were a lot of moments where I felt that, and maybe it was true for them, but it wasn't true for me.
Mhm.
And I started to just trust, like, I want to experience things myself firsthand and not
Mhm.
just repeat what someone's saying or what someone believes. I want to know why I believe it. And that's only really going to happen through experience. Yeah.
Right. So how do you know then how to start a YouTube channel? Like, what did you do? What was your
Uh,
preparation for that? You didn't have a cell phone at the time, I believe, so you
yeah.
had to like
Yes. Yeah.
figure all that out.
Yeah. I was in debt, $10,000 in first order of business.
Was that from the DWIs, the $10,000 debt?
Yeah. Lawyer fees and all that stuff, paying for
Hmm.
everything. So probation, all that stuff. So I'm committed now to turning my life around. So like first order of business, get a job, pay everyone back. I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna do this stuff, I gotta kind of enjoy it and also be on a path of my own. And I was sorry, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I'll do that on the side for fun. I'll film it with my phone. I see people doing that, So I leased an iPhone.
What was your phone like? You had no phone, or you had like a little flip phone, or what was your
Oh,
situation?
I was completely against technology. So I was just like living off the grid, that alcoholic lifestyle, just like skateboarder. I was against everything. So no cell phone, no social media. So starting this whole thing was like just diving into a whole new world of trying to understand how to edit, even just posting online, like the apps. I didn't know anything. So I leased this phone.
From Radio
Yeah.
Shack?
Oh, from like a Verizon store, $30 a month or something. So I'm just compounding my debt at this point.
Hmm.
But I knew if I was gonna go down this path of like working, saving money, I needed something to keep me sane. You know?
Talk about where your YouTube channel started, and then once you started to do your challenges, like how did you get that idea for doing your first challenge, and what was the result of that versus just kind of post. I don't know what your cadence was in the very beginning, but just talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the evolution of your YouTube channel.
Yeah. I think getting sober played a huge part in the mindset about it because that clarity, I started to go, oh, you've only ever taken from skateboarding your whole life. Like I've been doing it all these years and you love it, but like you haven't really given anything back. You get, I've been sponsored, so I'm taking boards. I don't know. I just felt like I owed something to skateboarding. So I wanted to give back. So I've been doing it for 20 years at this point. Like, all right, what better way to do a YouTube channel than to share everything I've learned? So I started doing trick tips and just trying to teach people everything I knew and like emptying out my head like it was a library and just putting it down on paper.
Would you plan it out for the month, or would you just kind of show up at the skate park, turn on the camera, and just say, "Okay, let's see, I'm gonna do whatever trick."
I'll let you take a guess. What do you think? Nah, no plans, no content plans. I'm
Were you
just showing up.
checking the numbers as you were posting to see if people were even watching,
Nope,
or what they
not really.
wanted?
Nothing. No, I was just like, um, I saw a giant hole in the market. There wasn't really very well done, detailed trick tips about mini ramp skating, which was something I loved. So I just looked like there was a hole in the dictionary or the encyclopedia that needed to be filled. So I was just like, all right, trick by trick. What trick can you do? Each day I'd show up and just film one. So I was kind of just rifling it off systematically and not thinking about, is this getting views? Is this getting views? Because I was like, the internet needs this, and Google needs this information. You know, um,
What do you mean that there was a hole in the market for that particular approach? And what would you what so when you created a video, what would you do in your video specifically that no one else was doing in their YouTube videos?
so the only types of tutorials I saw online were from like a big company, and they almost just made it for the sake of making content. And it was a while ago, a long 20 years. I don't even know at this point. And they would just grab a pro and they'd say, how to do this trick. You come up, you stall, and you come back down. You don't skate. you watch that video, you're like, what? I don't know. What am I getting from this? It does not helpful. It's entertaining, but it doesn't help. So, my dad was a yoga teacher, so I think I had an inclination to teach. I just loved teaching and sharing what I knew. And I loved going into detail. So I'd be like, all right, your shoulders need to turn beforehand and your board's going to follow and you got to press on your heel. So I would really go into like fine detail and I'd chop away all of the BS. So it's just this dialed in 2-3 minute video of just the best information you could find. So I think doing that for a year, people just like, how do you not throw that guy a sub? Like, you're going to subscribe. Like, all right, thanks, man. You just taught me a trick and like put in all this work,
And you'd been teaching a little bit too by that point. So it's not like you had to learn how to teach people how to do a certain trick because you'd already done that with kids and whatnot, right?
Yeah, I ran a summer camp at the skate park for a couple of years, and I've taught one upstate, or actually it was in New Hampshire. So I had some experience, but I wasn't thinking that way. Like, these were just skate trips and asking, oh, I ended up here. The skate park needed someone to teach, It just, maybe I was called to do it or said yes because my dad was a teacher, but it didn't feel like I was planning anything. It just kind of led me. That's where my interest was.
Did your cousin give you any unsolicited advice or anyone reach out to you and say, hey, you should start doing this or that or do more of this or more of that? Or how are you?
My cousin never gave me advice, but we would make videos together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd go on a trip with him and sometimes he'd include me or we'd go skate and he'd tell people to subscribe like in the beginning, which helped like get it off the ground. But not many, he didn't have a couple, 50 subscribers or something like that would come over. But as far as advice, no one really gave it to me. I just would nonstop search on YouTube day and night. As you could see, the obsession is kind of a part of my life. And so when I locked in on YouTube, I would just all day and night, search how to do this, how to do that, metadata, and just research the best I could.
Okay, so 2018, you start this challenge to show a new trick every day for a month straight. And this takes the blog from 1 to 2 a week to daily. So talk a little bit about what the unforeseen challenges were with that and also what the learnings were as a result of that.
So I was working now at a taco restaurant, just trying to save anything I can. I'm just packing tacos in the boxes and I start this series. So I'm getting off of work and just taking the train and then skating a couple of miles just to get to the skate park to make these daily videos. And mind you, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I've never daily vlogged before. I made a couple of videos, but so it's definitely like a big learning curve of pushing myself to talking in public, what to say, filling that gap. You need content every single day. The editing chops, doing something for 30 days in a row, you're going to get better at it. So for me, instead of overthinking about it, setting like a game or a challenge, it makes it so much easier and almost gives you like a reason to fail or not fail. You just start it. You're like, all right, I gotta keep it going.
And you said you kind of found your voice through that. What was your voice? What was that? What were the characteristics of your voice versus what you were doing before? Were you trying to sound like somebody else, and now you just said, you know what, I just need to be?
Yeah, I think the beauty of my path to YouTube was partially that I was off the grid and didn't have social media. So I wasn't in that mindset of like comparing or looking at what anyone was doing or, I was just kind of in my own world. I didn't know if it was stupid to make trick tips or if it was the coolest thing in the world. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to do it. Now that I'm more involved, I can feel those things, oh, it's kind of lame if you do trick tips and skateboarding. You know what I mean? Like there's the judgments within each community and things like that. But in the beginning, I was just so green. I just dove right into it.
Yeah, you also mentioned that initially you were speaking to young skateboarders, but you realized that a lot of your content was being consumed by guys like you who were in their, late 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, who were getting back into it. So once you started to realize that, did you begin to sort of to make videos specifically for that avatar?
No, and I've still never done that. I don't make any videos with like an avatar or a person in mind. I literally just think about what has helped me in my life and I just share that as honestly as I can. That's it. And the trick tips, in the beginning, I thought I teach kids at the skate park. So I think I'm teaching kids, and turns out people want to relate to someone like them. That's all anyone's ever doing is like looking for someone that's living life similarly to you. And if you see a 35-year-old guy at the skate park, it's easier to, learn from him because you guys are the same age. So I was attracting older people, even like 50, 60, year olds getting back into it. That was cool. I wasn't expecting that.
So what were some of the outcomes with the YouTube channel from doing a trick every day? Did you notice your subscription rates go up, your retention rates go up, more comments, more likes?
Yeah, a lot of comments, a lot of engagement. But a lot of the things that I do tend to not get a lot of views because I'm not like doing like outrageous thumbnails or maybe negative stuff or shocking things necessarily, because I don't know. I'm just
this
like I said,
trick
I'm just
will kill you if you do it
exactly
the wrong way.
right. I've always wanted to do things solely on merit, and if they work, they work. I'm not gonna. I know marketing is a part of the whole thing, but I don't know. I'm just sticking to what makes me feel good and what I'm proud of, and I'm just gonna ride that out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right. But you began to formulate this community, right? And you didn't have that hockey stick moment. It's just slow and steady, slow and steady.
Yeah. So it was maybe that first challenge. I made it to 5,000, maybe 10,000 subscribers. Lot of engagement. People were sending me boxes of like skateboards and my shoes were falling apart at the time, like giant holes in them. So people were sending me shoes, boards. So it was really cool to just see that support in a world I had known nothing about. And then I did another challenge, I think a year later, called 50 Tricks, 50 States. Learned a new trick, new state in America every day, 50 days in a row, daily vlog, the whole thing. And that same thing, it just kept compounding. But it wasn't like, I feel like you hear that and you imagine this big jump, 10 to 20,000 more subs is a big jump. But in the grand scheme of YouTube and like relatively, it didn't feel like that huge.
You also have your cousin as a point of reference. I don't know if you were checking his numbers and stats and thinking, wow, he's so far ahead and 10,000 is nice, but it's nothing compared to where it could potentially be, right?
Yeah. I think it was more so comparing to the whole YouTube landscape. Like I look around and be like, look at some of these channels, like, and what they're doing. I'm like, there's so many, some of these channels have so many subscribers, like, so, but on the other hand, the longer I've been doing YouTube, now I appreciate, like, I know what 50,000 people is. When I was young and starting, it was just a number. It was just a sound. You know what I mean? Just like 50,000. You don't envision each single individual person. Giving a talk in front of 50,000 people, like that's a huge. It's a stadium.
It's significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but you also have a new appreciation for the challenges and presenting these challenges on your channel because you see that it engages more people, right? And Which, let's be honest, it makes it more exciting creating content because you know people are watching and you know people are engaged and people want to support you in various ways. So why not just do a series of challenges? So 50 days in 50 states, a new trick, 50. So you'd already done the trick thing, right? So we got that down. We know how that goes. Now you add the new barrier. I'm going to drive however many hours in my what is it, the Grand Marquis,
Mm-hmm.
and post up, go to a skate park. And it's kind of like a daily vlog now because you're showing the food, you're showing the trick, you're engaging with your community that you're creating, and then you got to get to the next state, and you're including Hawaii and Alaska in this as well. So, what are some of the things that surprised you about that challenge?
So this one felt a little bigger, getting a bigger audience. I'm raising money to help, starting like a GoFundMe and stuff. And um,
And you're still on probation. You still have to
I'm
do the
yeah,
breathalyzer
I'm
to
still on
just
probation.
start your
Yes,
car.
I'm not even allowed to leave the state technically, but because I was on good behavior and like he let me go, and I'm checking in, starting my car every day, blowing into this thing, and I had to like do check-ins at random auto shops. But something I learned with this challenge was it couldn't just be about the trick. I'm going to every state in America. I got to like show people what I'm doing,
Mhm.
you know? And then I started filming the skaters at the parks, and that kind of, I didn't even notice it till really right now, but that made a shift in more focusing on the community and highlighting people, learning about people's stories and talking to them. And like, I started paying attention to the environment more, and yeah, just highlighting people really.
But this adds more time on the edit, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I didn't care. I'm not. It's so weird because like I'm always optimizing, but at the same time, for certain things, I'm not. And if I just deem it important, I'll deal with it. I'll
Mhm.
figure it out. And so, um, yeah, I'm editing 2 3 hours of footage at the end of every night, but that's what makes it meaningful.
So when you
Is
have 2 or 3 hours of footage, what is the editing time like per hour of footage that you have?
um that's a good question. I mean, each night it probably took me. It could be between 2 to 5 hours. It depends. It just depends. Picture me trying a trick for 3 hours, sometimes 2 hours. Think about how many attempts that is. So I have to kind of go through and like slice each one, trim it down, which one's best. That's just that. Then you got to go through conversations and see what, so like the good thing someone said. Um, so I'd say on average, maybe 3 hours.
So a day in the life is you um, kind of waking up, going to Walmart, brushing your teeth or whatever.
Yeah,
Or you're
sleep in
waking
the
up in
back
the
of the
Walmart
car.
parking lot.
Yeah, sleep in the back of the car. Um, Constantly like like freezing in the back seat, turning the car on to get warm, and then being like, I can't leave it on. Wake up, turn it off. I don't know if you've ever slept in the car before, but it's kind of the routine. Yeah, go in, brush my teeth in Walmart,
Is
drive
it
maybe.
crowded in Walmart in the morning because you have all the RVs and stuff? So you have to wait for a sink and wait for a toilet and all that, and then like on an
Not
average
really.
day.
It's not. Yeah, it's not too bad. There's other people that sleep in the parking lot, but usually, yeah, it's not too bad. You get in there, do what you got to do, and get on the road. It's like maybe 2 or 3 hours to the next state.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll go. Maybe I'll grab lunch, film like a local cool spot, go to a skate park, maybe two, because I want it to be like diverse. I want to show. I don't want to learn my trick at the park that maybe I filmed at first. So I go to the first park, then I go to the second park, film some skaters, then I learn a new trick. Try that for 2 3 hours. and then start driving another maybe 2-3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
park, edit, sleep, and then rinse and repeat.
So when you're mapping this out, are you mapping it out according to where the Walmarts are, or are you mapping it out like finding corner where there's like 4 states touching each other within like, a
Yeah.
couple hours and that kind of thing? Or how are you
Yeah. So
routing this?
it started from a map I found online, which was I was Google searching the fastest way to go to all 50 states. Some guy had a map on there where he zigzagged up and down. So I was like, all right, I guess that makes sense. That's my template. And then I went through each day and I'd find a skate park along that route or close by, wrote them all down and how long they would take. So, all right, this one's 5 hours away. This one's, 2. And then I just went through each day, basically seeing if I could learn a trick and make a vlog in a day, But once I was doing that, though, I was like so feverish about it. I was like getting through that whole list. I was so excited just to see if it was possible.
And it was, as long as you didn't leave your wallet behind.
Yeah, I mean, brutal, man. Yeah, day was at 48. I stay in Seattle at a viewer's house. I sleep there. Takes me to the airport, so I leave my car at his house. I change my pants, and turns out my wallet was in those pants. So I go to board the plane, and yeah, I have no ID. So not fun.
How did you do that? How did you navigate that situation? You mentioned, getting your parole officer to give you permission to do this trick. So there was some magic that happened there, and then you magically appeared on this flight with no ID. How does that work?
You just push, man. You just got to push. You got to ask, and I found if you have a smile, you tell people your story, like what's going on. Luckily, I had one that was pretty entertaining. Who wants to be the guy that, like, I don't know, turned me away on day 48,
Did you show them on your phone, like, this is my YouTube channel?
I don't know if I had to bring it up, but I told them. I'm like, I'm doing this series. 10,000 people are watching a day. That definitely helped, but I think they would have let me on. I would have said some story or some reason to convince them. You just got to ask, really.
That's the secret to...
That's the secret. One time, me and my wife were in Puerto Rico, and she's like, "Oh, we missed the flight. We gotta get a new one." I'm like, "Nope." Run out the hotel. I stop a taxi in the street. We hop in, get to the airport, run as fast as we can. Everyone's on the plane. Everything's closed, and I could see the pilot through the window. And I'm waving at him, like telling him to stop and telling the people to let us on. They never do this, and they open the doors and let us on. So wow. I think it's just the point of, like, no one wants to look like an idiot, you know what I mean? They're like, begging people to get on a plane. But I found a lot of times in life, not just in these silly situations, but if you ask or have the humility to ask, you can get more than you think.
All right. So you finish that. You complete all 50 states. Okay. Where's your YouTube channel at that point?
Okay. I'm probably at maybe 40,000, 30, 40,000. It's a little blurry because it's not just that. Maybe I got 10 or 20,000 from that video, but I did a video called 5 Easy Mini Ramp Tricks Anyone Could Learn. It's like one of those videos that, like, just a lot of good information and almost anyone could watch it. If you're first starting out, like, it was just really helpful. So that slowly helped build a lot of subscribers over time, like behind the scenes. That's probably at like 5, 6, 700,000 now. So things like that can really move the needle. But I don't like leaning into those. It's just like a layup, I mean, I'm just going to make list videos forever. Like, I don't know. That's not my thing. I want to learn the hard lessons and teach what people need, or, I just don't want to just enter something into a machine just for numbers, you know.
And also, how do you top that? You just did 50 tricks in 50 states in 50 days. Well, you
Yeah.
can't go back to just doing okay, this is how you do this trick. And so
That's yeah. That's a really good point. Like I don't really talk about that, but yeah, it's like you do this thing and then I'm just going to go back to talking about this one specific random trick that like 5,000 people care about maybe. Um yeah, it feels like I'm almost stepping back down or something. Like I've I'm on a trajectory. But I try not to think that way. I think it's flawed thinking,
Mhm.
you know?
But it feels like you've transcended skating at this point. So now you're not modeling skate tricks as much as you're giving hope. You're giving people hope. You're showing people what's possible in life in general through your example.
Yeah, but I'm not thinking that at the
Yeah, of
time.
course not. Of course not.
Yeah,
But that's what's
yeah,
happening in this community that you're building.
I guess. But yeah, I'm just oblivious. I'm just kind of doing my thing, and hopefully, my example is the
Mhm.
thing that teaches. You know what I mean? I'm unaware of it. I'm just trying to like fix my life and the mess I made, and if I can put that in an organized way online for someone else to try to do it, like that's awesome.
Are your family and brothers and dad and everybody, are they noticing you doing this and finishing this challenges? And if so, what's the conversation like?
Yeah, so my dad actually he passed away from Parkinson's right after the 50 states.
Hmm.
But that was a pivotal moment because I was taking care of him. I'm feeding him through a tube. I'm there every day and he basically told me to go.
Hmm.
And like he wanted to see me like succeed and keep pushing myself. He didn't want me to like stay there with him,
Hmm.
So,
Did you think
um
about him a lot during that?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, but I also thought like, all right, he's gonna enjoy these videos. Like, I'm gonna give him something to like be excited about every day.
Hey, really quickly, if you like this content or if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments because your likes and comments are going to help me learn what you want more of. And then that way, I can keep bringing you the good stuff. All right. Thanks so much for your feedback and back to the show. All right. Take us to summer of 2023. This is your most audacious challenge yet. How did this whole thing come about and what exactly was it?
Yeah, so I skateboarded across America completely solo, just myself in the backpack,
Meaning
and
no support vehicle.
yeah, no support vehicle, just me. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, it's tough to top the 50 states challenge. What are you gonna do from there? I started thinking about every country, but it just felt kind of empty. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't know. So I sat on it for a while, just kept skateboarding and just going down that path, waiting for
Mm-hmm.
these things to kind of arise. And me and my cousin, who makes YouTube videos, we came up with the idea to skate across Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty small, much smaller than the U.S. Maybe a day or two, kind of fun. Maybe do it for charity. And then COVID kind of took off, so we couldn't really fly, and we called it off. But the idea stayed in my head. I'm just like, is this possible? Like, has anyone done it across the US? So I started researching, and like, once I saw that no one really had done it, like
Mm-hmm.
completely solo, Guinness World Record, I was like, that obsession came back.
What scared you the most about the possibility of skating across America before you did it?
Beforehand, let's see. Probably like bears. Like bears, like animals, stuff like that. Just being out, you know. I've never really even camped out before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going across this whole country. I kind of know what it looks like, but not really. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be facing 12 hours a day going through the wilderness alone. So I'm calling ahead, like doing my research. I'm calling like the conservation areas and stuff. I'm just like, are there snakes around right now? Like, what do I have to worry about? So um, yeah, I'd say probably animals and running out of water.
Yeah, we've all seen those videos on YouTube where the person's on a road bike and the bear starts chasing them, or skis and
Yeah.
the bear starts chasing them. But around highways and things, you don't really get a whole lot of wild animals like hanging out waiting for the next prey to show up. That kind of stuff usually happens deeper into the woods.
Yeah, I mean, but also I'm in a 120-mile stretch of wilderness with no cars really passing by.
Hmm.
So in your mind, like you just don't know, or at least I didn't.
Hmm. What were other people worried about when you told them the idea?
I'd say the
'Cause
biggest thing was
everyone's
getting hit
like,
by
be careful and watch
yeah,
out for this, that, and the other.
biggest thing was getting hit by a car.
Hmm. Did
A
you
lot
think
of
about
people
wearing
thought,
like a orange construction vest or something while you were
oh no, I
skating?
could never. Yeah, I thought it was funny, to be honest. Like people were like begging me to wear one, and I've been wearing like all black for years, and it was just kind of making me laugh throughout the trip. So I just kept it going. But like at the end of the day, if someone doesn't see me, like the orange vest isn't gonna help. You know what I mean? If they were looking down texting, like the vest doesn't change anything.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So you're gonna do it. Tell us what you need to do to pull this thing off. And how did you obviously didn't research anything. You didn't talk to anybody. You didn't figure out what the best practices were for this. So
I
what
didn't
did
know.
you?
I mean, I researched. I was looking online, just digging, researching my route.
Hmm.
Going through Google Earth, like almost every single street,
Hmm.
trying to see if it was dirt or, if it was open or closed.
Is it that good, Google Earth, that you can see like if there's a shoulder or if there's gravel or
I,
these kinds of
I
things?
don't I don't know if it's Google Earth. I think it's actually Google Street View.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, you can pretty much go through almost any street you want.
So you did a
Um,
street view of the whole route across America?
yeah, it took a long time. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Wow.
doing it, and sometimes there's no data. So like maybe for the most part everything's on there, but sometimes it's not.
Hmm.
And I found out on my trip, sometimes when there's no data, there's a reason why. Yeah, so sometimes there's no road there, or um,
Did you give yourself permission if you needed to walk at certain parts just to like get across an obstacle or something? Or were you like really strict? Like, no, I have to skate, so I got to find an alternative route. How did that work?
so for Guinness, you're not allowed to push 1 inch at all.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know how strictly they mean that, but like for me, I just locked in on it. And I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, I'm pushing every single inch of America. I'm not skitching on a car. I'm not walking. So even if I fell off my board and got pitched forward, I
Hmm.
would walk back to like a foot before my exact point to make sure I'm covering every inch.
Even though no one was watching, they would have no idea if that actually happened.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even if like sometimes I went down a road, hit a dirt road, and maybe it was only like half a mile to the next actual street, like concrete. And I'd be like, all right, I can't walk it. And I'd go back 10 miles and backtrack to another route.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
obviously, you can drive a highway across America, but you chose to stick to smaller roads to avoid traffic.
Not really. I was on highways. You can't go on interstates. So like
Hmm.
5 and things like that. Um, Sometimes I'd be on the service road of those because that's legal, but I was on highways a lot. Sometimes you're on a 1 lane highway with trucks going 60, 70, and there's no shoulder. What are you going to do?
Hmm.
So sometimes I'd have to just physically jump off my board and let them pass and then get back on.
Mm. Okay, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So, your preparation, you have your black outfit, you got a spare black outfit, you have a camelback backpack. All right, how
Mhm.
much does all that weigh? The stuff that you're taking with you.
I've actually never weighed it, but I'm going to guess maybe 10, 15 pounds.
Hmm. And the plan is to skate 50 something miles a day during the day only, stay in a hotel at night, a cheap hotel that you could find. at night. Go
Exactly.
in, plug up, upload your stuff, post every day, get up the next day, start again.
Yep. Yeah, 50 miles was like my mantra basically.
Hmm.
Like no matter what, I'm doing this in 2 months, and 50 miles a day is roughly 3,000 miles. So it's just like, all right, you make it to 50 every day. That's it. That's your goal. That's what you focus on.
And you're starting in Venice, California, and then through what? Nevada, Arizona, Texas, that route? Or how did you
Not
choose this route?
Nevada. I was a little bit more south, so I did, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, I think Arkansas, Tennessee, Virginia,
That's to
and
avoid the Rocky Mountains,
yeah,
right?
and I wanted to stay in warm weather where it would be least likely to rain.
Right. And then in Virginia, why Virginia? Why not like Georgia? Why not just follow the 10 across and take it to Florida?
This company Jackalope reached out to me, and they were doing a huge festival in Virginia Beach,
Hmm.
and they were like, "Yeah, you want to end here, and we'll support the skate across America." I was like, "Yeah, why not? It makes sense." And Jack, Virginia Beach is actually a skate town, like a really historic skate town. Really good vibes there. Everyone's very supportive, so it just seemed like a cool place to end. Even though I'm from New York, I was trying to stay south with the weather, and that just seemed like a good spot, kind of middle of the way across the country.
Also, there are mountains. There's the Appalachian Mountain Range, which obviously you want
Yeah,
to avoid, right?
yeah, I couldn't, escape all the mountains. So, I mean,
Hmm.
there were some really heavy ones in Arizona too, but yeah, the Appalachians were. I underestimated them. Just the constant up and downs, and I'm going down these curved roads with no shoulders, just
Hmm.
bombing these mountains with trucks, all over the place. It's
Hmm.
kind of damp. I'm like sliding my feet around. It was pretty dangerous. Um, but that's kind of what makes it fun too.
Right. So, did you pack well? Did you have when you got out of LA? Did you feel like I have everything I need, or did you realize really quickly, oh my God, I should have taken more of this and less of that, or how did you adjust once you got those first few 55 mile days under your belt?
Yeah, I would say I tried to pack everything as minimally as I could. Just basically like bare essentials. And then maybe a week in, I was like, my version of bare essentials completely changed. So I lost like an outfit and a half basically. I'm just shedding stuff. I had a sweatshirt I left behind. Um, and yeah, it just kept getting lighter and lighter. And I would try to put less and less water in my bag each day
Yeah.
to just minimize the weight. Because, 12 hours, you got this thing on your back. You want to, be as comfortable as you can.
Did you smell like a homeless person after a few days, or were you hand washing your clothes at night, or
Um,
how did that work?
yeah. So, I mean,
Because
both.
55
Yeah.
miles on a skateboard at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
So I'm sure I didn't smell great. Um, Also, when I called ahead every night from my hotel, I'm like trying to find one. First question would be like, do you have a laundry room? Because I only had one spare outfit. So my sweaty one had to go in the wash at the end of the day.
So you washed
Or
every night when you went to the
every
hotel.
night. So I'd put the quarters in the machine, $2 or whatever it is. And
Hmm.
sometimes they wouldn't have detergent. So yeah, I probably smelled like a hockey bag, but it was like kind of clean.
What was the
Um,
ice for? I saw in the documentary you would fill up a bucket with ice. What did you do with that?
I mean, I try to mitigate the pain in my feet as best I could, but it didn't really work. Um, the short list is plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, ingrown toenails. Um, I'm sure there's more, but those are like the main ones that were really hurting me every day.
So talk about that physical challenge of kicking. You're ambidextrous, but obviously even being ambidextrous, 55 miles for 2 months is a big it's a big task for your muscles, for your legs.
Yeah. No, I had to. You can't stay on one leg. You know, you just like the blood rushes to it, like it's just not going to work. So you have to push evenly. And I knew that early on. So I trained beforehand and tried to practice as best I could to be even. But
Even meaning 1 to 1 or 10 and then 10 on the other
oh,
side, or
yeah.
20 and
So,
20 on the other side, or how'd you, I know you
yeah,
had
it's a
it
good
down to a
question.
calculation.
If it was a long, flat stretch, maybe I would do 2 to 5 minutes on one leg,
Mm-hmm.
go to the other leg, go back and forth. It's really when you just start feeling that pain. You know, maybe you're working out one arm or something and you're like, all right, move to the other one.
Right.
But if you're going up a hill, like a giant mountain, I'm basically doing like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just back and forth, just panting as fast as I can to try to get up it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. But when you're out on the road with no shoulder and there's those ridges on the side, rocks and pebbles everywhere, and semi flying by you, you're going to go back to your comfortable stance. So
Mm-hmm.
I ended up probably doing maybe 60, 70% on my good leg, which is, it worked.
And take us into the mentality. Were there thoughts like, why did I put myself into this? You know, obviously, since somebody was sponsoring it, you probably didn't think of quitting at all. But I'm sure you thought, this is ridiculous. This is, what were you thinking the whole time? Because you have a lot of time to think on your
Yeah.
on your
Oh
hands.
yeah, I had plenty of time to think. Yeah. The sponsorship thing had zero with I don't care about quitting with that, to be honest with you. Like that wasn't it was more of announcing it to the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this, I'm skating, and I'm daily vlogging, like, and saying it for months and months, even years before that I'm gonna do this. Like I'm not gonna not do it.
Mm-hmm.
So at no point did I ever think this was stupid or what did I get myself into. You know, if anything, all that pressure kind of made it easy once I was out there, because then it was just like, I don't know, this machine.
Did you have mental games that you played with yourself, like counting signs or anything to kind of pass the time?
Um, Let me, not really, to be honest with you. I listen to music, podcasts here and there, but after a while, you just get bored of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how much can you listen to for 10 hours a day,
So you would just listen. You wouldn't listen to anything. You'd just be out there skating and just
Yeah, I
kind of
would just
listen
be
back.
in silence. Yeah. And like just taking in the environment. Um, I did set out with, this thing was for sobriety and kind of like mental health. And silence is the best way to get the answers you might be searching for, or the things you're suppressing, or the lessons you need to learn. Everything we consume every day is essentially a distraction for the most
Mm-hmm.
part. Like every answer really is underneath that in the silence.
Did you work out anything about life or about yourself during that trip?
I really honed in on the fact that I'll think ahead. I'm thinking ahead. How's this moment going to be? Oh, all these people are waiting for me. How should I respond? Or, just
Mm-hmm.
thinking of maybe the next moment. And I realized, yeah, you can plan, yeah, this or that. But for the most part, you do what you do in the moment and you're not even thinking when it happens. You just react, you start talking, you're on autopilot. So
Mm-hmm.
usually all the thoughts just kind of hinder you and they're unnecessary.
How would you know when it was time to vlog? Because I would see you occasionally. You'd stop skating, you'd sit on your board, you put your tripod up, and you'd start talking to the camera. Was there a certain like key event that would initiate that for you on a daily basis, or was it just kind of a intuitive thing?
Um, I mean, I would try to document things that looked beautiful. So if there were, or painful. So if there was a giant hill, as much as I didn't want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
I would put the tripod down, skate all the way up it, and then come back down, get my tripod. And then so I'm creating a double the work and probably extra miles that was never calculated. But that, or just really I'd follow my thoughts when I had a moment where I realized something, or like my knee injury, for example, we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If I had like a thought about how that led to my drinking and how the whole path led, I would just share that, So just really just if I felt compelled or learned something, I would share it.
And your videos documenting this trip have thousands of comments. Was there one that kind of caught fire and went viral that I guess gave momentum to the rest of them when you started this trip?
I don't think so. Like comments as in like in the videos?
Just a video that you posted, like were they popular from the very first one, or after maybe like 10 of them after day 7, 8?
Yeah. In the beginning, I think it only got maybe like 4,000 views, the first one, and I'm used to my last series. I did 10,000 a day. But I hadn't been uploading consistently. And so, I'm just like, whatever, but I committed to this thing. So normally maybe I would have saw that and been like, this isn't getting the most, but I was committed. So next day, maybe 6K, 8K, slowly building. I guess the algorithm's starting to learn it too. Like people are watching now 4 videos in a row, or they're catching up or telling their friends. Starts picking up steam. I think maybe a weekend it was probably at like 20K, pretty consistently. But the engagement, from what I've heard, compared to like other YouTubers, was extremely high. And it makes sense, right? I'm doing this like huge thing. I'm completely alone and I'm being very vulnerable,
And now you're meeting people as well. You're meeting people on the road. So people would just like camp out. They would hear that you were coming. And were you posting the route? Was the route posted somewhere so people could follow along with where you were going to be potentially on that given week or day or whenever?
Yeah, I think I had my route that was on the app online, but I don't think many people followed it. I think it became fun, like a Where's Waldo kind of a thing. Like, I think he posted that he was on, Route 66 yesterday. Like he's probably going to be passing here. And like people would wait on the road, not unsure if I was going to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were so gracious. I saw in the documentary, you would stop and people would obviously have a million questions and just be in awe around the mission to go across the states. And you mentioned that was your favorite part of the whole journey at the end, was just meeting people on the road. Do you have any interactions that were particularly noteworthy or surprising to you?
There was a bunch. It's hard to really, pinpoint one. I remember really early on, maybe day 5, older couple, probably in their 70s. I think they've been sober for about 40 years. They came out on the road and packed lunch, some drinks, and telling me stories about sobriety and how they're like, just, love what I'm doing. That really kind of set the tone. Other people started coming out more once they saw that. And, but it ranges, I would talk to, even homeless people that didn't know I was doing anything. I would just talk with them, sit down for 10, 15 minutes, or people would come out and tell me about how they have cancer and their whole story and journey going through it, and how my trip was helping them like push through or give them motivation, So it's just such a wide range of experiences and interactions.
Yeah. There was this one woman in the documentary who was like, be careful, be safe. I always find it interesting when people say stuff like that.
Well,
it's like,
funny. She's funny because she almost had like an attitude of like she wanted me to fail. Like there's a big mountain up there. Well, you got to watch out. There's
weird
it almost seemed like she's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, I think I'm good.
Like you couldn't be doing something more dangerous, but obviously you're thinking like no one cares about your safety more than you do when you're doing something.
Right. And in my head, I'm just laughing. I'm like, she has not experienced the things, I've had trucks ripping by me for months. Like I
Yeah.
get it.
And you've had a couple
Yeah.
near misses, right? People like being distracted and then
Oh
noticing
yeah.
you at the last minute.
Yeah, a bunch of times. There was one guy who veered off the side of the road, and I like had to jump off my board. There was that happened a couple of times actually, and then there'd be times where I just have headphones in, get a little too comfortable out there. Maybe you lean the wrong way or you stretch, and then
Mhm.
like a truck would like it almost felt like grazing my hand or something. You go, wow, I could die. Like I need to not have my headphones on the loudest setting. You know.
Mhm. Okay, so you're getting closer to the finish line. You're in Virginia, which is just crazy. What are you feeling once you start to once you get at the point where you only have maybe a day or two left? You're still on your own. You're wondering what
Yeah.
the reception is going to be like.
Yeah, I think it was either the last day or the day before it started to hit me that I was no longer just going to be alone every day.
Hmm.
You know, there was a certain silence and peace being out there. Like I wasn't a part of the world anymore. Like everyone had jobs and like doing these things, and I'm just like in my own zone for 2 months. You know, I'm about to dive back into, um, you know, tons of people and interviews and things. So I'm thinking like I've done daily vlogs every day, so there's such a buildup. So I'm like, the finale has to be big. What am
Yeah.
I gonna say? Like, what do you say? You know, so you just
Yeah.
start. I'm like, I can't think. I just can't. I gotta just focus on what I'm doing.
Yeah. Neil Armstrong talked about, what am I going to say when we land on the moon?
Oh, really? Yeah,
I have to come up with something profound, you know?
yeah.
But meanwhile, he's just a regular guy like we are and just doing this thing and, just probably were you wanting it to end at that point? Were you like over it completely?
It was like it was a mix.
Tired of washing your clothes every night, tired of having the ice, tired of just being on the road and dodging trucks and all this stuff.
I was in such a rhythm, and I felt so meaningful and purposeful and dialed in, and had everyone's support, and so I almost didn't want it to end. I almost just felt like my body. I could do this the rest of my life, you know. But on the other hand, it's like good things come to an end, and it's like an attachment to try to just make it. You know, like it was the moment. It is what it is. You know, like so. I just kind of I did want to rest my feet a little bit, you know, towards the end, but yeah, I was just thankful I made it across basically healthy. You know, that was like the main thing.
And you skated on one set of wheels, but you did have a separate set. Why didn't you change them out even after the wheels started to kind of decompose?
Well, at first, I I was like, all right, I'm gonna make it across as long as I can. Let it go. You know, maybe if I make it halfway, then this second set will get me across.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, I made it halfway. I could probably keep it going. They're not too bad. And then people are begging me to change them, and they're like, and I'm like, I just start kind of laughing about it. You know, it's almost funny. Everyone's like, no, no, you got to change them. You got to change them. So I just keep it going. Week passes by. Week passes by. Pieces are falling off. They're starting to look like cheese. My comments are lighting up every single video. Like I'm like I almost got to the point where I stopped putting it in the videos, like video footage of it, because it was just too much. Um, and then I think it was day 47 of 57. And I was like, I can't change it now. I'm too close. I got to see if like one set of wheels can really make it across the whole country. Like
Mm.
when else is someone gonna test this? You know?
Does it
Um,
change the quality of the ride when the wheels are deteriorating? Like, is it slower? Do you have to kick more with bad wheels?
it starts to slow down gradually, but not too noticeably until like the point I was just saying, like day 47 ish.
Hmm.
Because then it wasn't spitting on like a perfectly round axis anymore. It was like every rotation. And that's when I kind of started regretting, like, oh, this is gonna be a long week or two. you know.
Yeah. But that becomes part of the story, you know, and then when it was all said and done, somebody offered to buy your board from you that you were actually prepared to throw
Yeah.
away.
Oh yeah, Tony Hawk. He saw the wheels, and he's a collector himself, so he saw this thing. It looked like an artifact by the time I was finished. You know how like chunked up the wheels were and stuff. So he wanted to buy it, but I wasn't thinking about that. When I got to the finish line, I was just gonna launch it into the Atlantic Ocean.
So talk about that experience crossing the finish line. How was that for you emotionally? What surprised you about that moment?
Well, I mean, first things first is how many people were there. Because in my mind, I thought there would be like 5 people, and like 4 of them would be my friends, you know? So my wife called and she's like, should I come down? I'm like, nah, it's probably not worth it.
Were your brothers thinking of coming, or your parents, or anybody?
No, yeah, yeah, we're all kind of distant and just like live our own lives. You know, like when we see each other, it's cool, but we're not really like, close in that way. But yeah, pulled into Virginia Beach, and then there were cops skating with me, riding with me, like closing off the bridges, and then groups of people just slowly started to amass and skated with me to the finish line. And then there was like 200 or something people there, big ribbon, the mayor's there, and I'm just like in disbelief. I just couldn't. Yeah, I was like holding back tears. Like I really couldn't believe what I was looking at.
Was the plan to jump into the ocean all along, or that's just something that happened spontaneously? You just thought, let me just go jump in the ocean.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, I kind of thought like, all right, I got to touch the water coast to coast. Let me just touch each one, I skate past everyone. I get onto the sand, and then I'm just kind of walking. And I'm like, I'm not like a runner. Like I don't get that excited about things. So, but then there was like all these cameras and people. I was like, I should probably just bolt it. So I just started running, handed my camera off, and sprinted and just front flipped in.
Okay, so it's all said and done, right? You finish it, you accomplish this thing. Then what? Do you still feel tempted to want to post like the day after video and the week after video? Like you have this community that wants more and more and more. Do you have to announce something? Okay, guys, the next thing is going to come. Give me a month. Like, what do you do strategically to help satisfy your audience?
It's tough because you just want to keep going, right? And keep the machine going. And, but the way I've operated my life was just, if I'm interested, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to do it for any other reason. If there's like a meaning there and I'm excited, then I'm going to do it. So doing all my challenges in the past, I've felt this feeling of the come down. I was kind of almost prepared for it in a sense. So I knew it was going to be tough breaking this rhythm and letting everyone down. But that's the thing. You have to do what's best for you, because they'll just take and take and take and want you to keep making videos forever. You know what I mean? People were saying, go skate back. Like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, I want more videos. I watch this every morning with my coffee. I'm like, dude, my legs are falling off. Come on, man.
Oh, man. All right. So it culminated in a book called Pushing Through America. The documentary is, what's the documentary called again?
Across America.
Across America. And you're going on a tour, which is exciting.
Yeah,
Talk
May 1st.
So you're going to do the exact same route that you skated on, right?
Pretty close. At one point, I go a little bit north and then get right back on it. But yeah, I'm basically recreating that path and doing premieres at skate shops and theaters all along the route, the whole month of May.
And is the book going to be available online, or how do people get a copy of the book?
Yeah, it's available online. I think by the time this comes out, I'll also have a pro model skateboard out too.
Nice.
So all that stuff will be on my website.
Is that a collab with a larger company, or is that something you completely created for yourself?
Yeah, it's from this brand called Chapman. They've been around for like 30 years. They're from Long Island. I've known them forever.
Hmm.
So they're putting it out, and yeah, all that stuff's on my website. And documentary is not out yet. We're trying to get it on a streaming service.
Hmm.
So if you can make it to one of the premieres, get a first glance at it.
And how do they find out about the premiere? Is there a website?
Yeah, the tour flyer is on my website, chadcaruso.com, and it's also on my Instagram, which is just Chad_Caruso.
And what are the places, the cities that, like, just a few of, just so they, in case someone's listening and they live near some of these places?
May 1st kicks off in Venice Beach. Then, so we'll be in San Diego, Arizona, Tucson. Where else am I going? Colorado Springs, St. Louis, Nashville, and then I end in Virginia Beach at the Jackalope Festival, and then I have like a huge premiere there, right on the water.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast, hearing your story. And you did, by the way, raise money for what was the organization you raised money for with this Skate Across America?
It's called Natural High.
Mm-hmm.
They're in classrooms in all 50 states, and they help kids focus on something they're passionate about rather than drugs and alcohol. So yeah, I wanted to give back to something that helped me. And yeah, so we raised, what was it, like $15,000 for them on the trip. So going from 10 grand in debt from DWIs to that was, that to me is just one of the things I'm most happy about from this whole trip.
That's awesome. Do you have another challenge in mind yet, or are you still incubating?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but this whole tour, it feels like a challenge. I mean, I'm probably going to daily vlog. I book all these things myself. I'm driving by myself and 14 stops across all of America. So
beautiful.
Focused on that for now, and then we'll see from there.
And then we have the worldwide skate around the globe.
If you come with me, I'm down.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, looking forward to getting a chance to cross paths in person one of these days. I love what you're doing. I'm super inspired. Love the story. The documentary is fantastic. The book is awesome. I love the design of it and just everything about it, man. I started following your YouTube channel. So I've been going back and retroactively looking at a lot of your earlier videos and the Skate Across America videos, because the way you shoot them, they're all very timeless. And again, it's not about, like, I could care less about skateboarding for myself, but it's really about teaching people to believe that things are possible for them that are probably bigger than what they imagine. So thanks for that example.
Thank you. And that's honestly a great point. And really the underlying thing for everything I do is like, yeah, the challenge is fun and exciting, but it's like, I want to show things that you didn't think were possible, So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Beautiful, man.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you're ready to start your inner journey, you can take my free 7-day meditation kickstart, which has helped thousands of people build a daily meditation practice that they actually look forward to. Or if you want to go deeper, you can book a one-on-one session with me, which includes a full year of access to every inner work course, challenge, and masterclass that I've created. All of the links are in the description below. And if this video hit home, you're definitely going to want to watch this next one.